All righty, we are in good company today, guys. I hope y'all are having a good morning so far. We're about to have a great morning because we are joined by none other than Mr. Cliff Newman himself. And as a matter of fact, I get nagged for saying that every time, Mister. But we're joined by Cliff Newman, MACV-SOG veteran and veteran of the first combat Halo jump of MACV-SOG. So, or actually of combat history. So we are in good company today. And without further ado, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi out there, everybody. First time I've done this, really, so bear with me. I'll give you a little bio of myself. I joined the Army in 1963 after a year of college at Grossmont College in San Diego, California, where I grew up. A friend of mine, and actually 5 friends of mine and I all joined at the same time, thinking we'd get into our 3 years and get out and be mature men at 21, 22, and go back to school. It didn't quite work out that way for most of us, at least not for me. I enlisted for airborne unassigned, which meant the Army could send me anywhere they wanted, and I would eventually end up going to jump school and so on. Well, in their infinite wisdom, and with all my scores on the aptitude test they give you, they sent me to radar repair school in Fort Monmouth, New Jersey for 33 weeks. And I didn't know a transistor. Well, they didn't have transistors then, but I didn't know a watt from an amp. Anyway, so after 33 weeks of radar repair school, I got thinking twice about that airborne unassigned business and thought, hell, I'll get out and go back to school, be an electrical engineer of some sort. So I turned down the assignment, and they sent me to the 2nd Infantry Division, Fort Benning, Georgia, as a radar repairman. And I was all the way up to a PFC at that time. I was 19 years old. Anyway, they had about 10 radar repairmen assigned to the division and like 2 radar sets. And another thing happened right after we got out of school. Someone invented transistors, so most of what we learned was obsolete. So they made us highly trained radar repairmen, mostly duty soldiers. And we were in the old barracks shoveling coal and heaters and so on. And I started soldiering a little bit and made friends with the first sergeant of headquarters company there, the second division, and came down. I actually came down for orders for Korea, and I went to Korea, and this is 1964, as a radar repairman to the 7th Infantry Division. Long story short, same thing. They didn't need any radar repairmen; they needed the soldiers. So, again, long story. I became the operations sergeant, and I did make E5 there, of the 707 Maintenance Battalion. And I wrote up training schedules, and I wrote a training SOP and all that, and celebrated my 21st birthday in Korea. And I said, well, hell, this is such a bad life after all. So I applied for OCS. I'd be darned if it didn't take me and send me to OCS. And at the end of 9 weeks, we had our first social beer gathering, and with an 11 o'clock bed check. And come 11 o'clock, I was still downtown partying. So they kicked me out of OCS. And there I was. I was a Sergeant E5. They didn't bust me. They could have. They didn't. And I went to the 5th MEC at Fort Carson, Colorado, who were gearing up to go to Vietnam. And I was the operations sergeant of the replacement detachment there. That lasted a while. I came down on orders for Germany. And while processing through Frankfurt, and 1966, my records were flagged, and they approached me about going down to the 7th Army NCO Academy and trying out to be an instructor down there. And so I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. I wasn't really sure what that was. And I had made E6 by this time, surprising enough. Wow. So I went to these Bat Tolts to the 7th Army NCO Academy, which of course is where the 10th Special Forces group was at the time. And I became a TAC NCO at the 7th Army NCO Academy. And, you know, we wore tailored fatigues, spit shine boots, carried a swagger stick. And, you know, I walk around in uniform with my Good Conduct Medal and National Defense Medal. And I met all these guys from the group, been to Vietnam a couple times already. And I started skydiving with the Trojan Sport Parachute Club there, which kind of began my free fall career. And some of the instructors there, mainly Frank Norbury for one, Rudy Villarreal, Gordon Jackson, Gunnar White, Bud McFadden, I ran into years later. Anyway, I became friends with these guys, and I'm thinking, man, these are the kind of guys I like to be like, you know. So I was kind of hanging out at the NCO club and with the guys from group, and with my MOS, they said, man, I ought to move across the street. So I did. I moved over to the 10th Special Forces group, went to work in the S2 section, and I was not qualified. I wasn't S2 SF qualified in the least bit. But they took me, and I signed in, and the duty officer at the time was a young lieutenant by the name of Mike Taylor. And I just came back from Hawaii, where Mike was entombed in the Punch Bowl. Mike and I became good friends, and we were friends ever since. And Mike turned out was a Covey rider on my Halo mission. And we renewed our friendship in Vietnam, and that's a whole nother story. Anyway, I was working in the S2 section, and my boss was a Sergeant Major Mac Williamson. And I'm, you know, scratching my head at the end of the day. I'm used to my office in the NCO Academy was kept up by students, and you know, and here I was, my spit shine boots and tailor fatigues, and I'm wondering who's going to clean this mess up here. You know, we had classified documents and so on. I did have a top secret clearance at that time, and Sergeant Major Williamson comes out with a broom, and I figured, well, that answers my question. You know, Sergeant Major has a broom. I guess this staff sergeant's going to do the sweeping. Anyway, that kind of was my indoctrination at 10th Group. The group, as everyone knows, was rotated to Fort Devens, Massachusetts in 1968, and I went with them, and I was in the advanced party, one of the advanced party members, and I went to work in the group S3 section. I went to jump school and took a lot of MOS training, and I went out in the White Mountains, you know, with some Navy detachments, and hung around and tried to learn what I was supposed to be doing. And lo and behold, the 10th Group awarded me my Special Forces qualification.
Wow.
And I had yet to be, you know, again, all my friends had been to Vietnam 2-3 times with awards and decorations and CIBs. And I still have my Good Conduct and National Defense Medal. And anyway, so I finally got to go to Vietnam, and that was in August, September 1969. And when I was in Germany, everyone was talking about, man, you know, if you go to Vietnam, you got to go to CCN. That's where all the excitement is. You know, that's where all the good guys go. So I kept volunteering, and sure enough, I got to go up to CCN, and I didn't really have a clue what exactly they did, you know. So we get off this 130 at Da Nang Air Base, and here's this old painted black school bus with the windows shut out and bullet holes in it. As that's your transportation. So I'm thinking, oh, what did I get into here? We went down to the CCN compound, and I learned what I was going to be doing for the next year or so.
Wow.
Turned out to be a couple of years actually, but and from there I was assigned to a recon team and ran one mission as a 1-1, an assistant team leader, and then I took over as a 1-0. Again, still trying to learn my ropes. I went down to 1-0 school at Longton and ran several missions as a 1-0. And toward the end of my, I think I just extended for another 6 months. And the fifth group had left, was leaving, and the admin control of the SOG projects was under USARV, U.S. Army Vietnam. They closed down. There were 3 CNCs or FOBs, if you will. One in Da Nang, CCN, one in Kontum, CCC Central, and one in Bam Ni Tuot, which is CCS, Command Control South. I know I'm being repetitious. For a lot of you guys listening out there know all this more than I do. But anyway, so I guess a fairly accomplished 1-0 by that time. And a lot of guys from CCS came up north, including Master Sergeant Billy Waugh, whose name needs no introduction. And he became as an E8, he was the NCOIC, the sergeant major, you will, of Recon Company. And that's me and Billy Waugh there. We were up skydiving over Hai Van Pass. Hai Van Pass, for those who've been back to Vietnam, looks like Los Angeles County. It's just huge, built up. There's a tunnel through Hai Van Pass, looks like Lincoln Tunnel in New York. Anyway, there was an ARVN unit there at CCN, and that picture was taken. We made a jump. We talked to the King Bee pilot into giving us a high lift, and he dropped some static line people, from ARVN static line troops, and the ARVN commander was a Colonel Nya, I believe, NHA. Nice guy, good guy. And he had to be a free faller. So him, Billy Law, and I went up and made a skydive over Hai Van Pass. Got about 7.5, I think. And I don't know, there's a picture somewhere taken from the air. You can see actual bomb craters over Hai Van Pass. Backing up, as I said, Billy Waugh came up from CCS, and the Delta Project. No, that's me. I just spotted that low person there as Billy Waugh. Colonel Yao way below him somewhere. But the Delta Project out in the Trang, which is a very well-known operation there, was closed also, and some of their guys, including Sammy Hernandez, came up to CCN, and I took Sammy out on his. It was sort of one of his first missions. He's much more experienced than I was, but I was the 1-0, and took him out on his first mission out of CCN. Excuse me. Him and a young lieutenant by the name of Fred Wunderlich, who became known as Lightning. And that's another story in its own right. But I was a 1-0. I was an E6. Lightning was a lieutenant. Sammy was a sergeant first class. And we ran a very good mission. And we actually got a road crew that was doing repairs in the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and pulled off the trail in the morning. We figured out where they were, and we got them. Anyway, so me and Sammy are kind of walking around the CCN camp, little bit of a stand down from the last mission. Billy Waugh comes up and says, we're putting together a Halo operation, and you're going to be on it. And I said, sorry, Major, I'm a skydiver, man. I'm no Halo guy. I'm a skydiver. And he said, well, that's close enough. You're 1-0 and you're on the team. So that was my that became my Halo experience. And so we put this team together, started working on it. There was some Montagnards from the Rodby tribe out of CCS that came up, and we had a Vietnamese, a Tiwi, a third lieutenant. That normally these guys don't get along with each other, Montagnards and Vietnamese, but these guys did, and we took them to. Oh, there's a picture. That is E no knee right there, and that's E tac bia right over there. And Tac actually got out and lives down at Hope Mill someplace right now.
I've got a photo I'm trying to find for you right now that Lieutenant Gilly wanted me to show you this. Right there's YTFBI, one of RT playing yards that made the first jump with Melvin, with Sammy and Melvin and Cliff. Tiak currently lives in Fayetteville, and I hope you can see that, sir. But he wanted me to show you these that he had saved, and he sent me these. This was taken in 2002, of course, but he's still in the Fayetteville area.
Yeah. Saw him a few times down there, but he married, and a little southern girl, had a passel of kids, put on about 100 pounds. And
living the good life.
Yeah. Had a good job. I think he worked for a curator at, and I think that's Lightning there.
I think I ever since we spoke, I think it was, and I tried to get this out for this occasion since this was at Longton for the Halo training, and I swear that looks like Lightning, like you said. I think it is. And then there's the other yard back there, but
he was a first lieutenant, and this is before Billy Waugh came up, before our Halo operation. And John Hobbs was NCOIC. John came down and says, hey, Cliff, I want you to take Lieutenant Wunderlich on a mission. And Lieutenant Wunderlich weighed about 98 pounds, soaking wet, had big, thick glasses on. And he was the the club officer, the veteran control officer, the male officer, and kind of a jack of all trades there at CCN. And that's a picture of Lightning and Sammy Hernandez in front of our hooch. So I said, no way, I'm not taking that young lieutenant out. And they talked me into it. Fred came down and said, hey, Sergeant Newman, I know you're the 1-0 and rank don't matter, and I'd sure love to go out with you. So
wow.
So I took him and Sammy out on their respective first missions at CCN. That was Lightning's first combat operation, and Sammy was highly experienced.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, we ran a good mission, and Fred and I became good. He's from Long Beach, where I ended up living after I was medically retired, and we became good friends later on. He unfortunately is gone now. A lot of our friends are. Let me back up a little bit here. Oh, yeah. So we had this Halo team put together. We had guys from CCS came up, a couple of riggers. Can't remember. One guy named Tony Appleton that sadly took his own life. And so we were going up to Okinawa to train with the first group Halo team. And up there was Joe Markham was a team sergeant, and Ben Dennis was on a team. He was the intel guy on a team. There was a Captain, Tony Solandro, I think his name was a team leader. So, excuse me, we were based down while we were going to take off from Saigon. We were down in Laotians, and we were going to take off from Saigon. We were staying at the Liaison Detachment in Saigon, which is fairly close to Tan Son Nhut. So we had a 130 laid on, and we were on this 130, and Op 35 had assigned a major as our project officer. And we knew I knew this guy. So all our equipment's palletized. We're on this 130, flying up to Okinawa, highly classified. You're not supposed to have mountain yards in Okinawa, but we took them. Major's looking around, and he knows it's an airborne training thing, but so he asked Billy Wass, where are the static lines? Billy Wass said, Major, we ain't using no static lines. Yeah, we landed in Kadena, and we never saw that major again for a couple of weeks. So we flew back to Vietnam. Anyway, we trained these guys up in Okinawa, and I like to tell a little side story. These, you put a backpack and a rucksack on a 5-foot tall mountain yard and watch him walk up the ramp of a 130. All you can see is the back of his helmet and his boots. They're like a little penguin waddling up. But these guys, and there's no word in their language for free fall parachuting. But they learned, and they damn sure did a good hell of a job. Our very first mission, our very first jump there, one of the yards, and we had timers on these guys. We had Cap 3 timers. They were checkmate timers. They were a lot better than the BF-4B timers that the U.S. used. But and we were 12.5, and we had all the high altitude jumping on Okinawa was over Ieshima, which is the island that Ernie Pyle was killed on in World War II. The news reporter. So on our first jump, we were 12.5, and you spot over Ieshima. When you cross the beach, you hit a stopwatch, and you're out over the South China Sea and get out somewhere. Hope you hit the island. Well, this mountain yard didn't comprehend that timer thing, and he got out and he fired. He pulled 12,500 feet. He got out floating over the South China Sea. This is going to be shark bait if we didn't do something. Anyway, Billy got on the radio. I don't think he was on that jump. Maybe he was. I don't remember. Anyway, he got a Marine helicopter explained, and this Marine helicopter went out and plucked this guy out of the South China Sea, and that was his last jump, first and last. We trained these guys, took them back down to Vietnam, and we picked our team, and our team was Melvin Hill is going to be the 1-0, and I get credit sometimes as a 1-0, and I was not the 1-0. Melvin Hill was. I was the group leader, if you will. I was going to be the first guy off the ramp. Melvin was a ranking guy, ranking E7, and I'm still in E6. Me and Sammy kind of rotated duties. We had the most ground experience, so we did a lot of that training with these guys, most of that training with these guys. And Melvin was the actual 1-0. Be sure he's credited with that. We sadly lost Melvin about a year or so ago. So anyway, we trained these guys up at a long time. We continued jumping down there, and we go up to Da Nang, up to CCN, and do a lot of our ground training, ground planning. And we're down at the Air America compound at Da Nang Air Base, classified area. Yeah. One mission was aborted because the weather was just absolutely terrible. So we briefed for another mission, and that was aborted because they intercepted a message from Saigon to Hanoi with our coordinates, names, and everything else. And had that message gone through, we wouldn't be having this discussion today. So anyway, that was aborted. We went back down to Laotians, and we launched out of there, actually. And Flew north, turned west, and over Laos at 17,000 feet at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 28th of November, 1970. Again, I was the group leader. Me and Sammy kept looking at each other thinking that we were going to turn around any time now, but we didn't. That ramp came down and like looking in the jaws of hell out there, it was pitch black. Little interior infrared red light was on. So anyway, we got out and I exited first and immediately went to a rainstorm, and was in a rainstorm for the next 15,000 feet, if you will, open in the clouds, and didn't see a soul. And we had marking panels. I had fluorescent marking panels on a bunch of cords in my backpack, and it worked good in starlit, clear nights, and it didn't work in a rainstorm. So I landed, and I was carrying this homing device that emitted a signal, on a certain frequency. The little handheld AM radio would pick up the null. In other words, when you didn't get the signal, that was the direction you should go in. And you better figure out basically where you are, because if you went 180 the wrong way, it's also a null or no signal. No telling where you'd end up. Anyway, but that thing wasn't designed to work in the rain, and it didn't work. So I had about an extra 20 pounds of worthless equipment that I took in. I cached that thing with the rest of my gear, rest of the parachute. And at first light, I started moving toward higher ground, and encountered TAC, who's doing the same thing. And so he and I stayed together for the next 6 days, it turned out. And the Montagnard, I can't remember the Vietnamese, one of the Montagnards, linked up somehow. And then Sammy and Melvin were by themselves. Excuse me a second here. Anyway, as I said, Mike Taylor was a Covey pilot, and I was an OV-10 out of NKP, the one site in Thailand, and the pilot was a young lieutenant by the name of Jim Latham. And Jim Latham is a story in his own right. He's a retired Air Force Brigadier General. He went on to fly F-4s, was shot down, captured, released, and broke his leg when he ejected. Continues his flying career, and he commanded the Thunderbirds for a period of time. And Jim and I are still communicate today. He's on our MIA-POW committee, which is a joint committee from the SF Association and the Special Ops Association. Anyway, he's flying, and Mike Taylor is the backseater. And I didn't realize that at the time, that I was talking to a friend of mine. But I was, and we're socked in. They were flying, we could hear them, but they couldn't see us, and we couldn't see them. So I was encoding, and of course this is before GPS, and I was, triangulating and encoding my coordinates, where I thought were my coordinates. About the third day in, they got a hole, and they came down and got a fix on me. I had a shiny mirror, flash it, and they saw me, and they relayed my actual coordinates, and they were about 10 clicks from where I thought I was and where we were supposed to be. So, no telling, we were wandering around Laos. Mike would like to tell the story. Yeah, I found Cliff just wandering around Laos, lost. Basically, we were. Continue on. We got pulled. I thought it was 5 days, but it turned out it was 6 days. we got pulled by a Jolly Green out of one of the air bases in Thailand. I think it was a SAR bird of some sort. Anyway, we're taken into Thailand, and from there was a blackbird C-130 just for our use. It flew us into Saigon. We got into Saigon at midnight, and Op 35 staff, including Colonel Shungle, who was heading up Op 35, big buffet display out there for us. So we, we would say 6 days on the ground, 2 days in isolation going, and 2 more days coming. So we're sitting at about 10 days, 12 days without a shower. And so we were all rank. We smelled terrible. But they called it a successful mission, and ironically, because we all came back, which I guess is a success, if you will. But they went on to do to make SOG went on to make 5 combat halo jumps in Vietnam, and none of them were really. And we did lose one person. We lost Madison Stroline on the third one, and so they discontinued that program, and it's never really been. They still make halo jumps today, but there's only been a few in War on Terror. Anyway, that's my halo story. I went on. I ran a Brightlight mission after for RT Intruder, which is a whole different scenario, and we're going to talk for the rest of the day on RT Intruder, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah. And that was my last mission. I decided, there's no point in running Recon anymore. And I told Colonel Belfi, Donnie Belfi, and drinking a beer at the club at CCN, him and Larry Manis, myself. I saw Larry in Hawaii when I was there a few weeks ago. He's not doing good, but he was glad to see me. Anyway, they're still running Recon missions. I said, I can give you an after-action report on most any targets you got out there. We know what's there. Anyway, so it was time to leave, and I left. They sent me back to Fort Devens, excuse me, 10th group, and I had made E7 by that time. And I was made the AST sergeant of C Company in the 10th group. And it was a good assignment. I didn't mind it all, and I was Scott out again with the Trojan Sport Parachute Club, and we ran a school, and I was the Halo advisors to group, and had a little demonstration team, and the group bought us. We had Capt America helmets and red, white, and blue jumpsuits, and man, we were pretty. I'll tell you, we did a lot of demos around New England.
Wow.
And I wanted to go to Okinawa, the first group, because when we were training up there, I kind of fell in love with the place, and I had a lot of good friends on Oki. And I finally came down on orders for Okinawa. And went to Okinawa, and naturally I thought I'd go to. I didn't think, but everyone thought I'd end up on a Halo team there. But Ben Dennis was still there, and he had the intel slot. And one, he was my friend. 2, there's no way I was going to unseat him. So I went to an A team. I became an intel sergeant on an A detachment, my first A detachment. And I thought, man, I made the big time now. I'm an SF guy here. So I was intel sergeant on A222. Well, it was A22, became 222, 2nd Battalion. Became 2nd Battalion, 1st group. And team sergeant was what the hell is his name? I can't remember. It'll come to me after we're all done here. Anyway, we went to the Philippines, disaster area relief missions, humanity missions, ran jump school on Okie. I went to scuba school there. That's where I met, became good friends with Walt's shoemate.
Oh, okay.
Out of SF history. And his son, retired Colonel Alan shoemate, is still a very good friend of mine today. In fact, next month I'm going down to Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty, they call it now, but still Fort Bragg. Those of us that spend time there, and we're going to spread Billy Waugh's ashes over Rayford Drop Zone.
Wow.
I'm not going to jump. I'm going to narrate the thing. I'm going to a little long in a tooth, and my joints don't work like they used to anymore.
Well, Walt's going to end up coming up later, though, for sure.
Yeah.
I've already seen questions alluding to that.
So anyway, one of our missions there was to go back into hang on, please. My phone's ringing here.
Yes, sir. It's fine.
Karen, can you get that? My able-bodied wife assistant in there.
Thank goodness for her.
Really. We went TUY back to Vietnam in 72 and October 72 with the FANK projects, the Cambo training missions that were going on in Vietnam. And then we had 2 8 attachments, mine and one other, went back and ironically on a training mission, and I like headed up a patrolling committee, if you will. And I had one afternoon, me and the other guy went out and we set up a land nav course in this area, and we're at Long High, where Detachment B-36 was at one time. And we set up a land nav course for these Cambos. And the next day, I'm out there supervising the patrol, and I stepped on a booby trap and just shattered my foot, just blew all of that.
Oh, my God.
I was medevaced, and after they wanted to send me right to the States, but I talked them into sending me back to Okinawa, which they did. And from there back to the States, and in April of 73, I was unceremoniously retired from the Army out of Letterman Army Hospital in San Francisco. And they gave me an attaboy, a pat in the back, pointed toward the door. And that's the end of my military career. So that's my story on Special Forces. If anybody wants to chime in or ask me anything, I'm more than happy to answer what I can.
Oh, yes, sir. We've already got some questions going, and since you had mentioned some notable names, I've got some really good photos. I don't know if maybe you've seen this one. This is back when Mr. Mike was at NKP with Mr. Latham, and there's Mr. Mike, right, Captain. I think he had made Captain.
Yeah, he did. He eventually retired Lieutenant Colonel, and Mike was one of those special ops officers that there weren't that many of them. Because in that era, if you had a commission and you stayed in Special Forces, it was a kiss of death. You know, you're lucky if you got past major.
Absolutely.
There's another.
Go ahead.
One of the other Covey riders in that picture is Dick Hall, and Dick was the actual pilot with Al Masiello as the backseater when we were pulled from our Halo mission.
I'd already seen that come up. Was that RT New Jersey? Was that correct? Al Masiello? Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. And we've got another photo of Colonel Taylor, Lieutenant Colonel Taylor, and Mr. Cliff had just didn't you just get back from Hawaii from interning Mr. Mike? Colonel?
Yeah, I did. He was entombed in the punch bowl there. He lived for many years in Hawaii with his lovely wife Laura, and on one of my trips back to Vietnam, we actually stayed with them, and had some good times there in Hawaii.
He's I was looking forward to this past year SOAR. We had been speaking by phone and by messenger, and I was very much looking forward. And literally there that month he ended up passing away, and I didn't realize it. I didn't meet him until he had already had his sickness, and it's just sad. I hate we lost him the way we did. He was a good man.
Has happened with a lot of our friends and comrades and fellow Green Berets, if you will. You know, we survived some of the worst combat operations of the war, only to be knocked down by friggin' cancer.
Yeah,
really disheartening times.
And is this y'all's medal ceremony or congratulations for after the jump?
No, that was we actually got a couple of medals. Melvin got a Silver Star as a 1-0. Sammy and I scratched our head over that one. We got Bronze Stars with a V, which is my third one.
Wow. Okay, I was always curious about that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Anyway, that's taken at Longton at the camp. I'm sorry, I take that back. That's taken in Saigon, I believe, at the liaison detachment. And that was after we had a chance to shower up and get some uniforms put together.
That's a wonderful photo of all three of y'all,
Yep.
And especially after such a historic mission like that. Before the people get beat me down here, let me get to some questions. I've got other photos for later. Red right off the bat, and I'm curious now to see how many, if you got any more in. How many jumps in your total lifetime have you made?
I would say in the vicinity of 2,750 some odd.
I thought I remember it was close to 3,000, and I always just rounded up. I thought it was.
And it's dumb on my part. I later on when I slowed down doing demos and stuff, I stopped logging. That's you got a good cut out of these logs or jumps, and when if the question comes up, my left foot was amputated eventually, and it wasn't blown off clean. It was shattered, and infection, osteomyelitis set in, and eventually the whole thing was taken off, was amputated. And after I was actually down at Fort Bragg visiting and hanging out with Walt's shoemate and a young fellow who I had trained as a young sergeant at the Trojan Sport Parachute Club by the name of John Tiffy, was running the parachute club and the Green Beret Parachute Club when it existed, and owned the Skydive operation down at Rayford Drop Zone. And he had jumped at the Golden Ice for a tour and became quite a proficient free fall parachutist. And I didn't really think about making any jumps again, but we got talking, and I got a contraption with a strap, and I strapped my leg on so I wouldn't fall off, and went up and made a jump and watched a rig and went back home to California, and I kept on jumping until about 5-6 years ago, and I finally hung it up.
Wow, up until 5 or 6 years ago, you were still jumping.
Most of my free falls are done with a prosthesis.
Wow, hats off to you, sir. And since we're talking about Walt, and I'm trying to find the photo of you two together, but before he passed, would you mind, because several people who aren't able to watch wanted me to ask you about it, could you share your halo and technically Walt's last halo jump where you halo jumped his ashes into the compound?
Yeah, Walt passed. I was well, I knew he was sick. I mean, I went down. His son Alan married a beautiful young lady, and they have 2 fine sons now. And I went to their wedding down in Fayetteville, and Walt was ailing then, and he told me, and he was a safety training officer out at CAG, SFOD-Delta, and he told me he was having bad headaches, and he was driving to work one day, and he lost all his peripheral vision. I mean, he just, everything's right in the tunnel vision, and he couldn't see anything to the side. And they developed, they went to the doc, and they found a brain tumor. And by that time, his cancer spread pretty much throughout.
Mm.
Yeah, he was gone. And the unit, excuse me, General Garrison, some senior NCOs down there, we were going to spread his ashes, and I was, asked if I would like to make the jump, and of course I was honored to do so. And it was quite an event. They really went all out. The unit was opened up to guests for this, and we had 2 aircraft. We had a Casa with General Garrison and some active duty folks, and then followed by a Black Hawk with some of us other guys, retirees and so on. Hank Luther was on it. Dave Clark was on it. Chuck Olerisi was on it. Roger Pickett was on it. And we had jumped over range 19, which was a multifunctional range in and outdoor that Walt had actually designed and built in the compound. And I don't know who was spotting the Casa, but they went long. General Garrison landed out. I mean, he was out, and that's barely made it in. But we just dropped his ashes, and it was quite a ceremony.
That's amazing, and I don't know if I've read it in Frank Greco's book or heard it from one of y'all, but I heard he also left a few $100s or something for his wake, also, to where all of the last drinks could be on him one last time as well.
Oh yeah.
What a guy. And I actually found the photo, and this is just a wonderful photo of you 2 together. And he's still got his handlebar mustache. What a man.
That's taken at his son's wedding.
Oh, it is. Okay, wow. And he's got 2 sons that were SF, correct? Or were there only one? I know the one you.
One son and a daughter.
Oh, okay.
And Alan, of course, is most everybody knows who he is. He retired a full colonel and with an ROT. He had an ROTC commission and
wow,
a tremendous career.
Oh yes, sir. I've managed to touch base with him a little bit in the past few months, and he's a stellar individual. Here we go with some questions. As the war progressed, did you notice any changes in gear, equipment, or tactics and techniques on the RTs when running Recon in 69 versus 71?
Not any real changes. I mean, we had access to pretty much anything we needed. Any weapon you wanted to carry, we had access to. Some folks like Swedish Ks, etc. Some folks carried RPDs, built Russian machine gun, which is a hell of a weapon, but I always thought it was too bulky, too cumbersome. I mean, Car 15 was the best weapon I ever had, and it worked when I needed it. That's what I carried. I carried a little Smith 38 as a personal weapon at all times when I was in Vietnam. Also, I never had to use it in anger, fortunately.
So you did carry a sidearm even in the field with you as well?
I carried it to the shower sometimes.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
That was a little
Yeah.
nice weight, 38. You know, and it fit most anywhere.
Wow. Speaking of sidearms, and I know I've already seen the question come up, but did you, other than your 1-0 award, which that's what I'm alluding to, did you ever use a Browning or own a Browning while you were at CCN for use?
No, no,
No.
I never had a mission as such, but we did have access to suppressed 22 high powered that you know, like I say, they were suppressed. And I remember the story goes, and one guy tried to take down a high-ranking NVA officer, and well, he shot in the leg with the suppressed 22, and the guy thought a bee stung him. You know, so I never had a mission as such, and I never really carried one.
Wow. All righty. I was curious about that. I was hoping someone would ask this, especially since you mentioned it. I want to see if he had any run-ins with Lieutenant Colonel Digger Odell.
Digger Odell?
Yes, sir.
Well, not run-ins necessarily. We became pretty good friends, actually. I met him. Walt Shoemaker introduced me to him in the 80s when the Special Forces Association held their convention in San Diego. And Walt and Pete Marca and myself did a freefall demo for that convention. And Digger had a lot of SF experience, special ops experience. He was Marine liaison to the unit and some other classified organizations. And he was quite a freefall parachutist. And he retired. He lived in Encinitas, close to Del Mar in northern San Diego County. And we stayed in touch. We jumped out at Paris, California drop zone out there, and made a lot of jumps together. And he asked me to talk to First Force Recon Company one time down at Camp Pendleton, which I did. And it was kind of a interesting story. I talked a lot of what I'm saying today. I talked about our recon operations and so on, and the Halo mission. And one of the biggest questions they had or comments they had was they couldn't believe we were doing that with round parachutes. And well, we didn't have any square parachutes at that time, you know. But anyway,
Make do.
I Digger Odell, and he's still alive and kicking, but he's getting up in the years, as we all are.
Yep, he is definitely a legend in special operations, and I was surprised to see him. I learned about him from Force Recon, and it was neat to see him knowing the SOG guys and the 46th Special Forces Group guys. So very interesting.
He's one of those guys. If he hadn't joined the Marines, he'd definitely been an SF soldier. I tell you what, he was quite a guy. I actually knew him down at MacDill. I think it was when Billy Wall was inducted in the Hall of Fame down there, Commando Hall of Fame. Digger was inducted.
Gosh, yeah. He out of all the Marines I've ever spoke to or read a lot about or heard a lot about from other Marines, he sounds like he was more of the Special Forces cut than the Marines. Although he was a dang good Force Recon Marine and a leader over there. That's for sure.
That he was.
Let's see. Oh wow, I had a feeling this one would come up. Could you speak about a little bit on Roger Teeter?
Well, Roger Teeter was my 1-1 when I took I ran a DMZ mission with Ronnie Hanna, and then Teeter came into camp, and he became my 1-1, and we ran when he went down 1-0 school, and he came back, and we ran a lot of good missions together, and became very good friends. We used to get kitted. A picture of Roger Buff, they call him, and outside our hooch there at CCN. As you can see, we're not the smallest guys in the world, and we used to get a lot of, not grief, but kidding about running Recon, and we were too big to be doing that. But I remember one mission we were on, and we had to do an IA drill to get out to break break contact. And I was ran with a 6-man team, and I always ran second, and had a guy behind me, and Roger ran second from last. And when I peeled off, all I saw was Roger's rucksack, and he had his bulk down behind that rucksack, so he could get small when he had to. And again, he went on to he's going to make a career out of it, and went on to take over Ohio when I got involved in the Halo program. And he was with another team. Then he wanted to fly Covey, and he was flying Covey one day over a team and flew into a cloud bank and never came out. And Ronald L, who also has a Halo jump to his credit, was on the Brightlight team that got him out. And that was I actually visited his gravesite in North Carolina when I was outside of Salisbury, where he's from originally.
There's a few people that follow the page, and I'm hoping maybe they've found my page and are watching this, and they always comment or leave a message when I talk about you and Roger, and maybe they'll see this. I hope they will. He sounded like he was a great guy. Didn't he also have didn't y'all also have a little dog as well named Buff, or did he have a different name that Roger adopted?
Not that I know of. We didn't have any dogs. I mean,
yeah, I can't remember. I thought it was Roger that may have had one, but I could be mixing it up in Da Nang Diaries on the Coveys up north.
Maybe later on, but I don't know.
Yeah. Was there any specific method for Covey pilots flying close enough to keep an eye on y'all without alerting the NVA to the team's location?
Yeah, they had their SOPs, and unless we called them in, they never flew directly over a team unless they were going or coming, or trying to get a fix on you. But no, they tried to avoid giving. I mean, they didn't want to get shot down either.
Yeah,
I can't quote their SOPs, but I always worked good whoever was flying Covey up there.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, and Da Nang Diary is a great book if you're wanting to learn about Coveys, but also John Plaster does a good talk about CCC Coveys, and like Cliff said, just from speaking to other veterans, of course, I'm not a veteran, have no idea what I'm talking about, but unless the team called for, help or to give away their location, Covey stayed as far away from the team because the NVA is going to know if they're flying in a certain area, the team's got to be nearby. So, like Cliff said, they're going to keep their distance unless they need to come help. So,
yeah, and two, we always used a dummy infill, one or two, when we were going in. And if we had time and it wasn't an emergency or a prairie fire situation, then we use a dummy exfil. I mean, they like simulate putting a team in or out someplace else, And we used to have these called Nightingale devices that were like a mesh screen with all kind of M80s and fireworks on them. It sounded like a hell of a firefight. Set one of those things off.
I'm actually reading about Mr. David Maurer who set one off, and they listened, I think, for 17 or 18 minutes of the NVA fighting each other after the helo dropped off that Nightingale, and amazing to sit there, and they were quite amazed to sit there and hear them fight it out like that. I can only imagine what that was like to see in person. This is a good question. Thank God for the SPADs. Could you speak about any experiences with your close air support?
Well, I can. I can talk more about RT Intruder, but I there's still some ongoing events happening with that. And,
yes, sir. It's fine.
I work on that. I was working the air, and I worked Cobra gunships. I worked SPADs, and I worked F4 fast movers. So, however, one SPAD story I relate that I mentioned. Our first mission with Sammy and Fred Lightning Wonderlick, we went in on it was ideally a prisoner snatch mission. We went in on this valley that I forget the target designator, but it was a valley with a lot of karst hilltops sticking up out of the ground. A lava formation that go back millions of years, some couple hundred feet high. We'd actually gone in, and my plan was, and I think we went down ladders. We rappelled or went down ladders to get in, but right on top of one of these little karst formations, the big pile of rocks, if you will. And we were surrounded in about 30 seconds after getting off the helicopter. Yeah, I asked Fred, I said, Fred, you haven't even CIB yet, do you? He said, no, I don't. I said, I see those bushes moving down there. I said, put a few rounds down there and see what happens. And he did, and sure enough, they came back at us, and you got your CIB on this mission. But the mission was to stay up there for a day or two and observe the trail, which we could see quite clearly from where we were, and go down and get a prisoner. Well, since they obviously knew where we were, there's no point trying to go down anywhere, right? So, but I think the second night in, we heard this rumbling sound, and it was a bulldozer, and this NVA road crew, and I feel bad for them now, of course, but they're probably just conscriptees, if you will, plowing this road, trying to fix holes in the trail. And so the next morning, when we ascertained where they went off the trail into the wood line, I was sitting on. I called it in. I said, we got a work crew. I didn't know what exactly we had in there, but we had a pretty good size depot. And that night, these guys are walking along with lanterns, talking, and this bulldozer rumbling along, like a 2-cycle engine it might have had. But I'm sitting on a rock pile with my back against a rock, and on my ERC 90, my survival radio that I loved using, and I was working SPADs. They were actually flying, and they would come past my location, and I was giving them azimuths from my location in approximate distances. And I'm looking down, these guys, and they're flying below me, and they're dropping their ordnance over on this suspected depot, and we got them. We got secondary explosions out of there and ruined their whole day. But yeah, I've worked close air support, and another reason why I'm still here today is because of some of those guys. And Tom Yarborough is a Covey pilot, flew over me on RT Intruder, and he saved my bacon.
I've got the book on my shelf, and if it wouldn't be so interruptive, I'd grab it. But guys, the name of the book that covers a lot of RT Intruder and some other stuff that Cliff is speaking about is Da Nang Diaries. And if you do not have that, and you would like to know not only about CC and Recon teams, but a lot about Covey pilots and what they went through. That's the book you need to get. It covers RT Intruders debacle and the perilous situation they found themselves in great detail. So, and Mr. Leckie says to you, medals for secret missions had to be hard to come by, huh? Alluding to your bronze star for the Halo jump.
Well, they're impossible to come by in a lot of cases. No, that's a good comment. And
yeah, I mean that's crazy. I mean, to think today somebody trying to pull that off, you know, I'd only think of what they'd get showered on their chest, you know. Did you ever pull a reserve in any of your jumps?
Yeah. Well, my lovely wife first saw me. She went out to skydiving. I said, "Excuse me." I never, well, in my combat, in the Halo jumps, no, I never had to use my reserve. I did one time on a plan. We were training for a demo, and I had to cut away and go my reserve. And a few times when I first started jumping again, primarily, I had to pull my reserve. First time my wife saw me jump, I did have a malfunction. And then I was doing a demo down at Fort Bragg or down in Fayetteville tell the name of that big park outside of Fayetteville. That was kind of me. But I had
not familiar with the area.
Malfunction going in there, and I had a canopy that turned out to be very acceptable for malfunctions. You get a lot of twists sometimes, and those you can use it. If you get a few twists, you can work out of them. If you don't, you better get rid of it. I did a demo at a motorcycle dealership in South Carolina called Thunder Towers, and it was bad enough. We're supposed to land in the parking lot, which no small guy, and I just don't like landing on hard surfaces, especially when there's all kind of motorcycles parked there. But we're right over Interstate 20. And I had a malfunction, and I had to chop it and get rid of it. I did actually get in and make it in with my reserve. Almost cut my ear off, and then when I cut away, I took my helmet off and damn near took my ear off with it.
Wow, man! Oh man! Alex says, first off, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. Being a well-known and extremely accomplished recon man, you've inspired so many. I'd love to know who you personally looked up to at CCN.
You know, I looked up to a great many people when I first started my special forces career, if you will. I mean, these guys were bigger in life to me. When I got up to CCN, of course, the team sergeant was Chuck Dover. And there was, Dave Maurer was up there then. Ellen Bargewell was there then. My good friend today, Tilt Meyer, was there then. Lynne Black was there. And a guy who actually put me up in his hooch. Had a tragic ending after he got out of the Army. His back was all screwed up. I forget his name. That was coming to me later on. Dial me back up tomorrow, and I remember all these names. I can't. Anyway, yeah, no, there's a lot of people I looked up to. I could go on and on and on, but
yeah, they're and especially in that time frame, you listed a whole slew of men that are legendary 1-0s and recon men in themselves. I mean, that whole list right there.
Yeah, I'll give you a little side anecdote here, if you will. You mentioned the Browning high power. SOG had a special recognition award. It's called a Silver Pistol Award. That was you know, it was a rumored. Everyone knew about it, but few people ever saw one. And I never expected any awards or decorations. That oh, there it is. That's it. Is that mine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Jason Hardy has that on display. Anyway, that's the SOG Special Recognition Award. And I haven't finished my first tour yet. And Colonel Sadler came into the CCN camp and presented me with that award, and I'm extremely proud of that. I had no idea that I was even slated to get that, but it's nice to know that people think you're doing a good job.
If you do me the honor, sir, I've actually got the citation right here that, and I'll read just a portion of it. Recon Team Leader Special Recognition Award, Staff Sergeant Clifford M. Newman for sustained meritorious service as a long-range reconnaissance team leader during the period of November 69 to June 1970. During his period of service as a long-range recon leader, Sergeant Newman proved himself to be an exceptional, effective team leader who never failed to achieve the highest results and obtained the maximum of enemy intelligence. His team's missions have not been characterized by contact, or his team's missions have not been characterized by contact with enemy, but rather an ability to infiltrate into areas of operations and conduct successful recon missions and return safely, the mark of superior leadership and ability. That's high praise right there.
That was even before the Halo mission.
Wow. Wow.
That.
Go ahead, sir. Sorry.
I just said I'm very, very proud of that. We even at that time, the war was winding down, and I mean our area of operations, the AO, Prairie Fire AO, was saturated. So a lot of guys went hunting more than they went running recon. They armed up and knew damn well they're going to make contact, and I tried not to, never shied away from anything, but I figured we're there to gather intelligence and get out. Live to gather more intelligence another day.
Another day. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Recognized for that.
And I mean, there's speculation from books I've read and speaking to other men who have received the 1-0 award. Some say it's as high as 50, but I've got, as far as my certifiable account with pictures and notifications and all that, it looks like it was as low as 22 to 25 that actually received the pistol. So that lets you know, whoever received that award were top-notch recon men and 1-0. So it's definitely a high recognition award. And sadly, Mr. Rob Graham, who we just lost, he was one from CCS who earned one, and he was another one that in that group with y'all. Just stellar recon man.
I knew Robert, and Rob was a good friend of my wife's brother, Dale Dinky, and
I forgot about that.
Who was killed in action. And sorry, and Rob was a good guy. He was a great recon guy, Canadian by birth, and went out with a crossbow sometimes.
The crazy Canadians.
Really.
What were the hardest missions to accomplish across the fence? Wiretaps, Brightlight, or just general recon in your experience?
Well, the recon missions, it all depended on the target. And all the targets at CCN were in very mountainous, thick terrain, not jungle terrain so much, but just thick terrain. They were all hard missions. Of course, the missions you make contact on are the hardest. I could tell some specific missions, but I don't know if you want to go into that. The Brightlight missions are, of course, the hardest because you know you're going to make contact. You're there to help somebody possibly recover remains, and that's the hardest, if you will. Not so much physically, but has a more of bearing on you mentally is bringing someone that you know who was killed in action out.
Yeah, the bright lights, automatically something's wrong, or else you wouldn't be called up. So most of the other guys say the bright lights, like you said, mentally, maybe not so much physical, but the mental aspect of knowing something's already terribly wrong and we're stepping off in it. And
yep.
So this is a great question. Do you recall the farthest you've ever managed to get beyond the border? In general, what distance would you guys cover on an operation? Hard question to answer, I know, but your best guesstimation will work.
Well, as far as the targets, we worked one in Laos, of course, and in the DMZ. The DMZ was probably the closest to our launch sites. Some of the targets were closer to NKP, which was in Thailand. That I couldn't even guess. Now, the other part of your question is how far did you travel on an operation?
Mm-hmm.
I never moved further than a click a day.
Wow.
That's not very far. That's less than a mile. And that's because, one, sometimes you're really crawling through bush, and other times where you may expect enemy around, you don't want to make any noise. So you take one step and stop, you take another step and stop again. So I generally would never went further than a click, 1 kilometer in a day. And I did not like to travel at night. You got a 6-man team, and I ran one mission 4-man team. And when the sun goes down, I go down. Man, I just found a good place to hide. Teeter used to counsel me. He said, "Damn, you picked the worst places to RO in." And my philosophy on RONing was, you pick a spot where no one else in the world would like to be, and the safest place for you to be. No, we often tied ourselves to trees so we wouldn't roll down a hill. Never slept very much, but in case it goes off.
Tying yourselves to trees so you wouldn't roll off. Wow. Jason, great. I'm getting a message. I've got audio issues. I apologize, guys. Can you give us a rundown of your first mission as 1-0? What was it like making decisions like that, and how did you get used to it?
The guys who were successful 1-0s, and I don't like talking about myself, but one, you got to plan your mission. Instead of just going helter skelter out there, and you make recon decisions based on the mission, the terrain, where the target was, etc. My first mission was 1-0. It was a long one. Ron Hanna was with me, and we were in a DMZ, and we were getting pretty good intel, actually. And we were going to be extracted after 5 days, and they're going to do a flip-flop. They're going to extract us and put another team in at the same time. Well, so we were hustling to get to an LZ, and the weather set in. Long story short, we were stuck an extra 3 days, and we ran out of food and water. That's a picture of me and Ron Hanna on the far. That's Travis Beck, who was my first 1-0. He sadly got wounded at the launch site. One of the Vietnamese was gearing up, and he was putting his pen flares in a however we're going to carry him. One of the things popped off and hit Travis Beck right in the leg. Ruined his career. Ron Hanna, my glasses here. Well, Ronnie's right there in front. He's in front of me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he got out and went to work in I think for Hughes Aircraft in their aviation armament department. Became quite successful business person.
Was that the average size that you guys would go out, or is this since Ron Hanna's or Travis Beck's running the team? Was this his configuration, or
that was one that was taken on the way to the launch site? I think that is still at the CCM compound, getting ready to take off, going up to the launch site at Quan Tree. So I never ran. Well, I'll take it back. I never ran a recon mission more than 6 people.
wow.
Our intruder Brightlight, we had 12 people, but and then I ran one mission with 4, me and Peter and 4 and Didge.
I think just to show off y'all's teams and what y'all were looking like at the time, I think this is the same team incarnation, or maybe, yeah, there's Ron and I think Travis.
Yep, that's at Quan Tree.
Ah, okay. So this was did y'all had 2 launch sites, Quang Tree and
three actually, Quan Tree, Fly, and NK.
And NK. Wow. And were y'all just on stand down and taking a break, or were y'all getting ready for a mission, you think, or what
RAO was socked in.
Socked in.
Yeah, and you stay maybe 4 or 5 days at the launch site, just waiting for an opening if it comes. But sometimes it never came, and you just went back to Da Nang.
Wow, looks like y'all are having a good time right there, though.
Well, if you call it that.
As best as you can. We've got a good bit of questions. Hang on here. Sorry guys, I've messed up a little bit of the rotation here. Oh, there it is right there. Did you have a get out of jail free card?
Yep. Never really needed it, but
thank goodness.
Well, actually we did, but they never really worked. The MPs caught on to what they were after the bit. Early on, they were handy to have. You know, you carry a concealed weapon, wear civilian clothes, enter off-limit establishments.
I've got one that a CCS man has sent me a copy of that he made, and it's really neat. Like you said, civilian clothes, carry documents, not to be stopped, can be out after curfew, and it's big boy rules, getting to do what y'all want. Hi, Bud and Cliff. Thanks for the live. You thank Mr. Cliff for this, not me. Did you or any SOG members ever use a stoner light machine gun?
I never did. I never saw one when I was there, but later on, I can't answer if they became available.
I think the closest to anything stoner wise would be, and it's not really close, would be y'all's RPD usage. You know, the SEALs used the stoner, and some Force Recon tested it out, but I think y'all were usually, you know, going with the RPDs when y'all went with something like that.
But you know more about that than I do.
No. I'm learning. I will say I'm learning from y'all, but it looks like the guys were using RPDs. The stoners were. I don't want to speak out of term. I'm not good on firearms, but the guys didn't really. They weren't conducive for up north and in the jungle like that. Down in the Delta was a different story.
Yeah.
Alex, can you talk about your most fond memories while in SOG? Good question.
Well, trying to pick out some good ones. I mean,
maybe this photo camaraderie ship may come in. This is a great photo of you and the guys hanging out. I always think of the comradeship that y'all build, and
yeah, that's me, and that's
baby son Teeter.
That's real pipe tobacco and not some other stuff.
Wacky tobacco.
Backing, that's baby son Davidson and Roger Teeter. And I can't remember who that is. I'll be darned.
And especially seeing the back of his head, I can't. Maybe Chafee. I can't. I can't tell either.
That's inside of our hooch, our living quarters at CCN. A little bar there.
That's were you and were you and Roger living together there, or was that the entire team living together, or was that just you and Roger and
yeah, Roger and I.
Wow, that's pretty neat. You and Roger. Do you have any stories about excessive rice wine consumption?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
At least none that he can remember. Just joking.
Like a whole lot of Black Label though.
Oh yeah, I've definitely heard of y'all putting it down in the Recon Club bar, and as a matter of fact, speaking of that, didn't you run the little bar for a little while?
About a month when I came, just before I left country. Actually, no, get back. I was running that little bar when the RT Intruder incident came to pass, and
so you stepped out and went to try and help out.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, this is an interesting question. I don't think I've ever even asked you this. What were the Indig like when you showed up on your first team? What was their experience level like?
That's a good question. Most of the Indigs were Montagnards. Mm-hmm. I had a Vietnamese team. I should say RT Ohio was a Vietnamese team that I took over. We had one guy, and I can't remember his name. He was kind of a tall, slender guy. And he actually fought the French at Dien Bien Phu. And so these guys had experience going back to, day one. My team leader, my counterpart, if you will, 01, and I can't remember his name either, he was a pretty sharp guy. He was a good leader, good recon guy. I don't recall a lot of his background. I found out something interesting while we were doing a little training over on Monkey Mountain. And we'd go out, they'd drop us in on the beach there, and we'd run some IA drills and so on and so forth, and go C4 out in the bay and catch fish. Excuse me. And this guy had an epileptic fit. And we go, yeah, good God, I'm glad we're not in the Mayo someplace. So I had to get him, had a medevac actually. And then we had another guy, my interpreter came to me and his name was Tom, H-I-E-N, him. And him was a nice guy, spoke pretty decent English, and he was like a gopher in the camp, in the CCN camp. I mean, he was like, he did laundry and you know, shine your boots and stuff and clean up stuff. A young guy, and he wanted to be a soldier. And so I talked to him, and he's, like I say, he spoke pretty decent English. I trained him, and he became a pretty decent recon guy. And we ran several missions with him. So in the mountain yards, of course, the ones that stayed with the teams were very experienced. And again, I'll mention the RT Intruder Brightlight that was went in with RT Habu, and RT Habu arguably was one of the better teams at CCN, and they were all Bru Montagnards. And we faced off against the company-sized NVA unit, and these guys kicked their ass. I mean, they went toe-to-toe. And so I can't say enough about what they did. There were a couple of Cambodian teams. Duskaranga had a Cambodian team. There were Chinese Nung teams. And there were some Chuhoi teams. Gary Robb had a Chuhoi. Chuhoi being, you know, there were NVAs that said hell with it and came south. They didn't want to live under the communist regime. Came south, and they were good people.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's and the Nungs, that they were kind of worn out there, because I mean the Nungs were fighting from when SOG first stood up. They were on the first group of teams. They were guards at, you know, House 10 and the bases, and they got to where they were so low of numbers that they were pretty much delegated to guarding. They had put in work and lost a lot of their people, and were had gotten put to guard duties. They are fierce warriors, the Nungs. The Yards and all of them are, but you hear early on about how fierce the Nungs were. This is interesting, because we had a CC on, or he was asking a few weeks ago about Nick Brockhausen coming in contact with weird or strange Montagnard tribes, and he was wondering, did any superstition stories, or did you ever see the people Nick alluded to in his book?
I'll bet you some of those Montagnards have strange stories about Nick Brockhausen.
I bet they do.
I never had any real dealings with any superstitions. I did. There was one Buddhist sect, and Buddhism was the primary religion in Vietnam, and it always was, and it still is today. One thing I'll say about the communists, there is no religion in communism, of course, but they allowed the Vietnamese to maintain their Buddhist beliefs, and had they not, they would have been there. There's one sect, and I was at the launch site in Quan Tri, and a team, and I don't remember the team, they brought a prisoner in who was shot up pretty bad, and he was unconscious. And he woke up, and he had like prayer beads, if you will. And they're little metal scrolls, or like rosary beads, if you will. And he woke up, put them in his mouth, and died. And the story went that they believed that if they went into combat, were wounded, seriously wounded, with these beads, they would go to where good Judas go to.
Wow.
I've never seen other than we had a python at the CCN club, but I think Lloyd had a picture of me holding that thing here early on.
Dude, let's get that up. There she is.
Yeah. A little bit of alcohol involved in that shot, I'll tell you.
I can only imagine, because there'd be no way I'd be letting a snake that size anywhere near me, much less around my neck.
Not a docile snake. I mean, things kept well fed.
Uh, I've heard the CCC guys had a special chicken pit, and they definitely fed theirs down there very well. Let's see. Oh man, I just passed a great one since you were talking about. Did you ever happen to make contact while y'all were on security on Marble Mountain? No.
No, other 10 to 68 when the camp was overrun. The NVA were up in Marble Mountain, and that was before my time.
Wow.
Really, and we had a little range at the base of Marble Mountain where we test fired weapons and ran I-8 drills. On one of my trips back, we did take a tour of Marble Mountain, and it's an amazing place. I mean, there's labyrinths all through there of ancient Buddhist shrines and statues, and I mean, it's just an amazing place. Very a lot of history in that place. There's an elevator there now. They got an elevator up to the top of that thing on the back side. That is an actual marble factory, refinery, if you will.
And this actually did while in Vietnam, or I guess you kind of mentioned it then, but did you go in while you were in Vietnam into the caves up on Marble Mountain, or?
Yeah, no, not while I was there.
Oh.
And I did not go into any caves in the AO. One, I get claustrophobic in tight places, and two, I'm too damn big to go in those things. Even then,
Yeah, I see some of the holes that people have set are in some of Jason's amazing books. Guys, most of these photos are from Jason's books. Others are from vets that have sent, but most of these photos today are from Jason's Hardy team history books. And I recommend, if y'all want to learn more about the guys and see their photos and daily life, you need to get Jason Hardy's books. He did a great job preserving these men's histories, and he's got tons of information on Cliff in his book. So that's what I've been using when I first met Cliff, to try and learn as much as I could. This one will be interesting right here. This is what was the closest you were ever to the NVA without them knowing you were there?
About 10 feet.
Wow, I can't even imagine. What kind of mission were y'all on? Just normal recon, or a road watch, perhaps? Or
no, we were on an area recon. Excuse me, and I forget the target designator again. We were on an area recon, and we came out. It was almost like a pristine forest environment. I mean, it was not a thickly wooded area, and I remember these little insects with looked like miniature peacocks, if you will. They had this plumage that they would, and they just crawling around. And we stopped to take a break, and I'll be damned, we heard voices. I said, oh my goodness. So we kind of hunkered down. And there are some workers carrying water with guards, and with the NVA guards, on a trail that was like 10 feet away from us. And I didn't know it was there. So they walked on by, and we just watched them. And I thought, well, look, let's, I got hold of Covey, and I had this plan. We get out and come back in a couple of days and set up an ambush in that trail and get a prisoner, which is what we did. Except when we came back in, we set up on that trail, and we didn't hear a baby crying off in the distance. So I said, well, let's move on up there and see what we got. And as we were moving toward the sound of this encampment, whatever was up there, we came up behind an ambush that was set up for us.
For you.
And so we had to shoot our way out of that one. And that's when I saw Teeter hunker down behind his rucksack. But
I mean,
we got out. We moved back. There was an open slash and burn area that we used as an LZ, and there were little stomps, tree stomps coming out of the grass. And these king bees came in, and one of them just tore the bottom of the king bee. That sucker flew. We got on it, and out we went.
I mean, did you ever know what? I mean, find out about the baby, or what? Did y'all see the ambush and immediately have to get out of there and or shoot your way out?
We got out, and they went in with fast movers and whoever knows. And
it was done.
Major secondary explosions. They got a major base camp.
Oh,
you know, I have no remorse over
no.
really done. But I wonder what would happen to that baby having not destroyed his world, you know.
I mean,
we were back. I think we were pulled by NKP, if not mistaken, and we were back at the launch site, and we were having beers and unofficial AAR after action report with the aviators, and I relayed that story. And one of the guys that burned that hill down got physically sick. He you know.
But I mean, it was a base camp though. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of tied in. Did you ever end up capturing a POW?
No, that POWs were the ultimate goal for a recon guy. I never got one. I came close a couple times, but never. I should have snuck down and got one of those bulldozer guys when I saw him, but I never got a POW.
That's still a crazy one with you and Sammy and Lightning. And would you care to while I'm getting stories together, would you care to tell a story of why Fred became known as Lightning? I don't know if the viewers know that.
Well, he went on to be a pretty damn good soldier, actually, and a good recon guy. And you know, same deal. I put him through Halo School down in Longton, and Fred was a little slender guy, and he couldn't do an arch on the table. You know, you used to have to do the table drill, and he couldn't hold an arch. So I told him, Fred, I said, you're going to be flopping around the sky this way and that way, and this is what you got to do to get back stable. Well, Fred turned out to be a natural. You know, his first jump, he was out there doing relative work. He was a natural. Anyway, he was leading a team off of Hickory, a radio relay site just south of the DMZ. And it was a walk-off mission, and they were walking off Hickory, and a bolt of lightning struck right next to the team. And lucky no one was killed, but he had some burns on his back from that thing. And he was lightning Wonderlick ever since.
Now, did he get hit twice, or was it only the one time?
I don't know.
I can't remember, and I was trying to see if maybe you knew, but one's bad enough though. We've got a few more questions. I didn't realize we're almost at the 2-hour mark, guys. So y'all get y'all's questions in, because we'll go to close to 2 hours, and we'll let Mr. Cliff go because he's got stuff to handle. But Alex wants to know, do you have any funny stories or interesting stories about something you saw the yards do in camp?
No, not really. Not really. One of our
other than their normal little hijinks they'd get into.
We were up in Okinawa training these guys. Me and Sammy took a couple of yards downtown to Gate 2 Street, and they had never seen anything like that before. Of course, they weren't supposed to have them to do that. One of our training jumps, who's who was on the combat jump with us. I was spotting and I was going to put the team off, and I was going to go out the door at 1:30 and then track down to a point, and the team was supposed to assemble on me. Excuse me. Again, yeah, remember, there's no word in their language for free fall parachuting. So anyway, so I get out, and we were at 12.5, and I'm tracking, trying to move horizontally the best I could. And open, and a round parachute, when you open it, it makes a lot of pops. You can actually hear it pop. And I open, pop, and then pop right next to me. I look, and there's another parachute, and it's need. So we land, and I said, "No, that's pretty good. How'd you do this?" And in his broken English, he says, "Oh, Tong Si," he says. And by tracking, for those of you who may not know, it position looks like a ski jumper. You got a convex, body position, and it moves you horizontally. No says, "I see you fly like this, so I fly like this." And that guy was following me all over the sky, And that's kind of humorous, I guess.
There he is, never done anything like this, and there he is watching you, learning as y'all are doing it, and keeping right there with you. God, what guys? This is the kind of stuff that why I'm so bound and determined to document y'all's history and stuff. It's y'all are just amazing men, all of y'all, the Indigs and the Recon men and Hatchet Force men alike. All right, guys, we'll take a few more questions because we're coming up on the end. We'll get Jason's and Alex in here. What was your favorite way to pass time while back home at the base?
Well, we had a little recon club there, and it was probably, I wasn't a gambler. There was a lot of poker games going on. I never got involved in them. I never had enough money to afford to lose. And of course, we get stand downs and head into Saigon, or with our walk on water cars, go down to Da Nang. And once I became familiar with friends up in Okinawa, there was a Marine 130 had a daily flight from Da Nang, which is a big Marine base, up to a Marine Air Base in Okinawa, and it was called Teeny Weeny Airlines. And travel orders made up, and I'd go down and get on the 130 and fly up to Okinawa for a couple of days, and come back and get briefed again. But that's it. And then when you're briefed for a mission, you start training up and go out to the range, or go over. There's a big range of Wacom called Wacom, and go out there and run IA drills, and lead action drills, and test fire weapons and so on. But mainly just kicking back in the club.
What was a normal night in the club? Getting to hang out with buddies, going over unofficial AAR reports, and just hanging out.
Hanging out, drinking cheap beer.
I like that. That's a good one. What is going through your head before you make the jump out of a plane? Or the plane on the first jump? What about when you're in free fall?
Well, of course, the pucker factor is, it's, at the max. And you think, Lord, don't let me screw up, your mission plans, wondering what the hell you're doing in here. That's kind of probably the first thing. Jesus Christ, how did I get involved in this stuff? In free fall, you don't have a lot of time to do a lot of thinking. You think about altitude, and of course, on the combat jump, I was in a rainstorm, and my altimeter had been pushed up against my chest, so I had to keep coming in and check my altitude. So there's not a lot of time in free fall. In skydiving, if you're doing relative work, you're thinking about flying here and doing there. what formation you have, you know, where you're supposed to be.
Wow.
Of course, we used to say anyone's never screwed up a relative work formation has never made one. That's kind of a given. You're going to screw it up one of these days.
Yeah. This kind of ties in. We've got two more after this one. Let me find that one. So it was tying up with it. How did it feel to find one of your yards on the ground after making the first jump? When did you become aware that you were 6 miles off your intended drop zone?
Well, when I first got on the ground and didn't hear a sound. I mean, there was no one around. I think, yeah, this is great. So I started, excuse me, I started moving toward higher ground, and I heard movement, and so I hunkered down and got ready to do whatever I had to do, and discovered it was another one of our team members who was probably doing the same thing. And when I first became aware was when we were in 3 days when Mike and Jim got through the clouds and actually got a fix on me. And that's when I found out we were off. I had cut, you know, we operated all our recon missions were generally in a 6 kilometer grid square. And I had cut 1/50,000th map, and I had cut my map down to 6 clicks plus about 2 on either side. And had it covered with acetate, and so it fit in my pocket. And when they coded the Capt back down my coordinates, my actual coordinates, you know, I had my map here, coordinates over here. So I didn't even have a map of, you know, I had to have called artillery or something, I'd have been in trouble because I was way off.
Wow.
So
Man.
The 3rd day in when they got down, I got a fix on them.
And I'm speechless. Alex wants to know, can you talk about the most heroic thing you witnessed or performed by a SOG man / NDIG while performing duties across the fence that you can think of course?
I'd have to talk about myself, and I'm not. I don't want to sound morbidly humble here. I'm not. I'm a flamboyant guy, and sort of no paragon of virtue, and you know, Roger Tier and I both got bronze stars on a Brightlight that we got Bob Coleman out, who was shot up real bad, and we went in to find him. We did find him. I started an IV, and then we brought Doc Hammond down, and he did a real IV, and we got him to a LZ where there was a helicopter coming in, and we started taking fire as we were moving to the LZ. Roger picked up, who's a strong guy, picked up Bob. I took point and was like, and I had a machete, and I was hacking our way through the bush, and you know. Of course, in our Brightlight with RT Intruder, which I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on. Mm-hmm. Long story short, the team leader was Danzer, Chuck Danzer, and our initial contact, we were being assaulted by a very large NVA unit. They were dropping grenades on our position, and one of these grenades had took his rucksack right off his back. It was Chinese grenade that are directional and not omnidirectional, as ours are. And when I first got down to this position, this defensive position, Dan was on the radio, and he's shooting on a handset, and the handset is not connected to anything. That was gone with the radio, and that's when I kind of took over the team and worked close air support for the next 6 hours.
Oh, God.
So that, you know, and that whole team was heroic in that operation. There's more going to come out and down the road. that mission.
Absolutely. And like you said, you've got stuff tied up that we don't really need to get into right now for stuff that's going on. So the audience understands and we understand. And we'll definitely have you back on when you can get into some more of that. We'll all be interested. But guys, the final question I'm going to take right now, because we've had Mr. Cliff long enough for today. Alex would like to know, if you have one, that's a hard question, who was your favorite person to run recon with?
Well, of course, Roger was my 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of a year, and I'd have to say him. And then, other than that, I have to say Sammy Hernandez.
Absolutely, Mr. Sammy. Wow. That's I had a feeling Mr. Sammy was going to be in there at some point in way. You can't go wrong with Sammy Hernandez backing you up or running with you at all. Like I said, guys, I've written these questions down, and the few that are left. But Mr. Cliff, we've had you for 2 hours, and I'm not going to hold you any longer. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we close it out this afternoon?
No, not well. Yeah, maybe a couple things. One, those of you who are in the Fayetteville area or want to come to the Fayetteville area on the 22nd of July next month, we're going to drop Billy Wah's ashes over Rayford Drop Zone, and I'm sure there'll be a toast or two made at Charlie Mike's thereafter. So if you can make it down, come on down. For my fellow members of the SFA and the SOA, hope to see you guys as sore. And but with all, everyone was kind of scratching their head when you came on the scene, but you became a great support person. And Sammy and I asked you what you're going to do with all this stuff, and you gave us a very appropriate answer, which is why we are here today talking to you. So never hesitate to reach out. And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Pleasure being on with my comrades and friends here.
I can't thank you enough, and like I said, it was an honor to finally get to meet you face to face, as well as Sammy this past year. And I'm hoping I'll be able to see y'all this year in October. But I can't thank you enough for the trust you've laid in with me, and coming on here and sharing and answering questions with the guys. And they it's just flooding in with thank yous and all of that. I'll pass these along to Cliff because they're coming in like crazy. But thank you, Mr. Cliff, for joining us, and we will definitely like to have you back at some point in time if that's okay.
My pleasure.
All righty. Well, we'll close it out for today. You can just hit the little leave studio button, and that'll wrap it up for today.
If I can find it out. Oh, here it is. Okay. Well,
Yep.
be talking to you, bud.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. Let's see here. There we go. I'm going to say, all right, guys, we had a wonderful guest today with Mr. Cliff. He's still on with us. He's closing it out. It's fine. But it looks like so far this week, that's all we've got planned. I wanted Mr. Cliff to be able to get his due diligence and his views in. So this was wonderful. We've got 36. I think we hit 40. I've got all of the questions down. I'm starting to write them down. Yeah, that was a huge compliment. I was not expecting him to say that. That he's a hell of a man. I'm just speechless. Yeah, I'm absolutely speechless. Thank you all for joining us. It's been absolutely wonderful. I just noticed I had a few more photos that I didn't get to share of him and Mr. Eldon, but like I said, we're gonna have the guy. Most all of these gentlemen will be back on. So, me and Brandon will be finishing up a POW show this weekend, and I believe Friday or Thursday, after I talked to Dave Mauer about setting up an interview, me and Jason Holmes will be doing a live Q&A and chit chat session. If you guys would like to come on here and talk to us. So just stay in touch, and it will I'll keep you in touch on who the next guests are. We've got James Stetchgall from Dead A. We've got Phil Hansen from the 46th Group and Delta Force coming, and William Walter, who is a gunship pilot and the unofficial historian, talking about the gunships in Vietnam. So I've got quite a few active duty men coming on. Dave Hall, those of you who are on Instagram, Dave Hall will be coming on to talk about his career, and then the man who was trained by Vietnam SEAL Marines. So I think that's going to be a great show. Yeah, I can see stuff in the comment sections going a little haywire, but everyone did well. You guys are awesome. Let's get ready for our next show. We'll have one Thursday and a nice chill little show Friday with me and Jason, getting future shows lined up and talking to y'all what we've got planned. So I will talk to y'all later, and y'all have a good rest of y'all's afternoon. See y'all. Thanks for joining me and Cliff.